Hi, I'm Diane Macedo. Today on ABC News Live, breaking travel news. A major computer failure is impacting flights nationwide. Hear what the FAA is saying now. More than a dozen people are dead after unrelenting storms in the West. Tens of thousands have been ordered to evacuate. Now emergency crews are preparing for avalanches with at least 12 states under alerts. And we have some new details about the suspect in the Idaho student murders. What police say he did before his arrest that they say helped link him to the crime, and what the father of one of the victims is saying now. But we begin with the major computer failure impacting flights nationwide. The FAA is now resuming normal operations after ordering a ground stop earlier due to a problem with its notice to air mission system. The system sends out flight hazards and real-time restrictions to pilots. ABC News transportation producer Sam Sweeney joins me live now for more on this. Sam, the FAA is back to normal operations, but delays are continuing, obviously, because one flight delay can often lead to more. So how long before passengers can expect normal operations?
Dan, we're going to see operations impacted throughout the day. When you see delays like this early in the morning, it's hard to stop them from trickling throughout the morning into the afternoon and, of course, the evening. Just one small delay in the morning can impact an aircraft throughout the day. And especially here on the East Coast, where those flights were starting around 5 a.m. when airlines like United, Delta, and American all began delaying their planes until they could figure out exactly what was happening. And then, of course, the FAA putting in that nationwide ground stop in the 7 o'clock hour. That lasted more than an hour. Operations didn't fully resume until after 9 o'clock this morning. So we're going to see big problems throughout the day. So, Sam, what do we know at this point about how significant this outage was? And what are they doing to try to ensure this doesn't happen again? Well, right now, there's about 6,000 delayed flights. 1,000 have been canceled. And this system provides critical flight notices to pilots before they take off. So, for example, a pilot may be flying from Florida to California, and this system will say, hey, look, there's going to be a rocket launch in Florida. There's military exercises in Texas. And when you arrive in California and Los Angeles, the south runway is closed. You should be aware of all that. So they are critical messages, but it's not life and death for these pilots. So if there were planes in the air, they were able to get notices from air traffic control, but out of an abundance of caution, the FAA said we're not going to allow any other planes to take off until we can get this issue resolved.
So, Sam, where does this investigation go from here?
Well, you heard the president this morning say that he does not know that this was a cyber attack. But the FAA, the Department of Transportation, of course, the White House, all looking into this. We are told that top-level officials are all on board working right now to figure out exactly what happened and, of course, try to prevent it from happening again. Now, experts I've spoken with say this system is antiquated. It's been in need of replacement. And the big question is, why didn't the FAA replace it sooner before this issue happened?
All right, Sam Sweeney, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And at least 17 people are dead in California after a series of unrelenting storms across the West Coast. Now, most of the state is under a flood watch. Thousands have been ordered to evacuate, and even more are without power. And as the snow piles up, officials are now bracing for potential avalanches, with about a dozen states under alerts. Matt Rivers is in Douglas County, Nevada, with the latest.
California inundated as catastrophic storms pummel the state. In the Sierra Nevada Mammoth Mountain, getting dumped on. Authorities partially shutting down Interstate 80 due to high winds and whiteout conditions. The death toll climbing to at least 17, with that number expected to grow.
We've had less people die in the last 2 years of major wildfires in California that have died since New Year's Day related to this weather.
As the state gets hit from the north to the south, rushing water turning roads to rivers. The Golden State has gotten between 400 to 600% above average rainfall totals. Some parts seeing more than 36 inches of rain since Christmas. That's put 90% of residents on flood watch. In Montecito, tractors working to clear the mud-covered roadways while residents wait under evacuation orders. Across the state, tens of thousands ordered to evacuate and hundreds of thousands more hunkering down, affected by power outages, flooding, lightning, and even hail in San Francisco. Forecasters now warn that storms will continue for at least another week and could bring up to 10 more inches of rain to Northern California in the coming days. In the past 24 hours, dozens of dramatic incidents across California. In the Santa Cruz area, this tree ripped from the saturated ground.
And Matt Rivers joins me live now from Douglas County, Nevada, for more on this. Matt, these storms have left widespread devastation especially across the state of California. Tens of thousands are still under evacuation orders. So what's the latest there?
Well, obviously, right now, the most parts of the state, the majority of the state is dealing with rain. Where we are here in Douglas County, we're right near Lake Tahoe. We're way up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. It's all snow up here. But for most of the state, it is just this constant deluges of rain. You get a little bit of a break, the sun will come out, and then the rain comes back. And so the ground is so saturated already, the water has nowhere to go. And so that is where we are yet again. This is day 11, day 12, whatever day it is now. It feels like a lot longer than that for all of these residents across the state dealing with this. We have more risk of mudslides today, more risk of landslides today. And as the rains continue, it just makes everything harder for all of these emergency crews across the state who are already basically tapped out trying to get power lines back up, trying to clear trees off the roadways. They're trying to pace themselves, and yet they keep having to deal with more and more issues. This is a very, very difficult situation right now across the state of California.
And Matt, what about this record snowfall? We can see some of it behind you. How are crews preparing for the potential for avalanches?
Yeah, here in Lake Tahoe, they're used to snow, but even this amount of snow is not what they're used to in terms of how much has fallen and how quickly it's fallen. Even driving up here yesterday, it took us almost 7 hours to get here from Santa Cruz, coming all the way up here. Mountain roads were really, really packed with snow, very dicey conditions on those roadways. Here, though, in terms of record snowfall in context, in just the last month, more snow has fallen in parts of the Sierra Nevada mountain than they usually get over the course of an entire season. That's just in the last month. So far, more than 2.5 times the amount of snow that usually falls up to this point has fallen. So it's just a remarkable amount of snow. Skiers, very happy. Drivers, not so much.
All right, Matt Rivers, we appreciate it. Stay safe. Thank you. And that storm is now on the move. Senior meteorologist Rob Marciano is in Los Angeles tracking where it's heading next. Rob, what do we know?
Hey, Diane, we're getting a bit of a break here in L.A., thankfully, as the storm that moved through yesterday is heading to the east, and road crews here in the Hollywood Hills, at least on the northern fringes of it, took yesterday to get rid of some of the mud that was here. We had a massive mudslide come down these hills, about 3 feet of mud and debris covering the roads in this neighborhood, and they brought in the heavy equipment to try to clear out most of it. Obviously, they still have some work to do. They want to keep the drains clear for the next storms that are coming in, because, as you know, this pattern is very stubborn, and we have storms lined up across the Pacific. There they are. One today is coming into mostly northern California. Another one coming in Friday for all of California. The stronger one is going to be coming in Saturday, and that one's going to have, I think, some ongoing impacts. The one that came through yesterday, that's going to be to the East Coast. Looks like tomorrow, damaging winds and maybe some tornadoes for places like Atlanta and Montgomery, Alabama, and then a warm rain event coming into the Northeast come late Thursday into Friday. So some of these storms are certainly going coast to coast. Some of these storms are certainly putting a little bit of a dent into the drought here, but it's coming all at once. We could take a break. It doesn't look like we'll get a break in this pattern until at least a week. Diane?
All right, Mar Marciano, thank you. The House Oversight Committee is investigating President Biden's handling of classified records. The committee's new Republican chair notified the White House yesterday, asking in a letter for all documents that were retrieved from Biden's personal office. The president says he was surprised when his lawyers discovered classified documents at that office he used after serving as vice president. ABC's Jay O'Brien joins me live from Capitol Hill now for more on this. Jay, Republicans had signaled that they planned to launch multiple investigations into the Biden administration upon taking control of the House. Now the House Oversight Committee is investigating this discovery of classified documents at President Biden's old office. So what are they trying to find out?
Well, when you take control of the House of Representatives, you also take control of the committees that the House has. And that's why you're hearing about this steady drumbeat of investigations that Republicans want to conduct into the Biden administration, into President Biden's family. As you said, James Comer, the new chair of the House Oversight Committee, is asking for those documents that were seized and taken from President Biden's office, or handed over, rather, by Biden's own attorneys. To give you some context, there are approximately about 10 of these documents. Some are marked top secret. Again, President Biden's attorneys found them and handed them over. They weren't taken like the documents from Mar-a-Lago that were seized by FBI agents. They were discovered last November, just days before the midterm elections. And again, some are marked top secret. James Comer has accused President Biden of potentially mishandling classified information. The White House hit back against that in a statement. They said that this is a political stunt, this series of investigations from House Republicans, that Republicans are not focusing on issues that the American people care about. But it's a preview, Diane, of what will be 2 years, most likely, of drama between the Biden White House and this new Congress, this new House controlled by Republicans who want to open investigations into everything from Hunter Biden to the Afghanistan withdrawal to the situation at the border to even the origins of COVID.
Now, Jay, the House is set to vote on several pieces of new anti-abortion legislation this week. So what's in those bills and how much support do they have?
Well, this is legislation that is an opening salvo from conservatives in the House. Again, they've taken control of the House, which means you can decide which bills you bring to the floor and which bills you vote on. This is a piece of legislation that's going to get voted on today. Is about infants who survive abortions. There's also legislation about federal funding for abortions. A lot of this is stuff that's already in federal law to a degree. This would be a stricter version of it in some cases. But again, this is another preview of what you're going to see over the next 2 years, which is that any legislation that passes the House of Representatives with Republican support is likely to be dead on arrival in a Democrat-controlled Senate. So unless Republicans in the House work with Democrats in the Senate and get legislation that can pass in both chambers, a lot of this is what are so-called messaging bills, which Republicans will bring to the floor, vote on, and then send to the Senate for the Senate largely to reject, Diane.
And last week, Jay, we saw some dramatic moments play out on camera during that contentious House Speaker election, and now some unlikely allies are pushing to have extra cameras in the House chamber more often. Now, it's not the first time this request is being made, but does it stand a better chance of happening with this House leadership?
Well, the reason why you saw it is because until there was a Speaker of the House, and we were saying all last week, there are no rules in that chamber, which means that the cameras in that chamber could operate largely without the rules that they currently have. So you saw Kevin McCarthy go up and whip votes directly. You saw that moment where Mike Rogers was pulled away from Matt Gaetz. You saw McCarthy and Gaetz have that conversation and say, we're going to get this vote done tonight at the end of everything. That was a week of unprecedented access to the House floor, the likes you've never seen. And now you have Matt Gaetz say that he wants those cameras to have that kind of access all the time. Maxwell Frost, the first Gen Z congressman, a Democrat from Florida. Gaetz is a Republican from Florida, also saying he's on board with that. We've seen other lawmakers say the same thing. C-SPAN has said that they want that access as well. Whether or not that happens is unclear, but certainly it was a view into the lawmaking process that the American public had never seen. It has some support. We'll see if it goes all the way. But I can tell you in the press corps, from us, that is something that we're largely in support of because you want to watch this process play out, and the American people deserve to see this process play out.
All right, Jay O'Brien, never a dull moment. We appreciate you keeping track of it all for us. Thank you. Coming up, new details in the Idaho murder case. What investigators say they saw the suspect doing that helped lead to his arrest. Stay with us. Welcome back. The families of 2 Idaho murder victims are speaking out just one day before the suspect is due back in court. They're describing how they learned of the arrest and what happened when they read the evidence against the suspect. This as we learn new details about what police say he did that helped link him to the crime. Mola Lengi has the latest.
As the suspect accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students prepares to head back to court, new details emerging about Brian Kohberger's actions before his arrest. ABC News learning from a law enforcement source that federal investigators observed him in Pennsylvania around 4 a.m. as he discarded garbage in his neighbor's trash bin just days before his arrest. Trash ending up being key in the case. Police linking Kohberger to the murders by collecting his father's DNA from trash outside the family home and matching that to DNA they say they discovered on the button snap of a knife sheath that was on the bed next to the body of victim Madison Mogan.
If I had 1 or 2 words to describe Maddie Mae, it would be just an angel, and that she just made me proud.
Ben Mogan speaking about his daughter Madison to ABC News and describing the moment law enforcement told him they'd made an arrest in the case.
And he said, Ben, this is the day that we've been waiting for.
Ben also describing his emotions while reading the evidence law enforcement say they had gathered against Kohberger.
I broke down and I just cried. I could only take so much of that, and I cried. I still haven't read the rest of it.
The police affidavit claiming investigators believe the 4 college students were killed between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. They say one of the surviving roommates was awake at the time of the murders and told police she witnessed the intruder, seeing a masked man coming toward her before he walked out through a sliding glass door, the roommate then locking her door. Police say later that morning, the 2 surviving roommates called friends to the house because they thought one of the victims had simply passed out and wasn't waking up. The 911 call finally coming around noon. Officials say the 2 surviving roommates are not suspects. Kaylee Gonsalves' sister, Olivia, saying Kaylee and Madison did everything right that night.
They went out together. They called for a ride. They went to a known establishment. They did everything you would want your daughter or your sister to do in that situation. You're supposed to grow up together. That's your God-given best friend. And so we're left with not only missing them and exactly who they were, but wondering who they were going to become.
On the University of Idaho campus, classes began this week with heightened security. Meanwhile, Koberger, who was extradited back to Idaho last week, is scheduled to be in court tomorrow morning. Diane.
All right, Mola Lengi, thank you. And ABC News legal contributor and host of the Law and Crime Network, Brian Buckmeyer, joins me live now for more on this. Brian, investigators say they observed the suspect for days, but they didn't arrest him, they say, until they matched his DNA from the trash to the knife sheath found at the crime scene. How crucial will that be to this case?
I think it's very crucial, Diane, for 2 reasons. One, it strengthens the legitimacy of the arrest. They waited until they got that crucial piece of evidence before moving in. But the other part, maybe the more important part, is that they were waiting for him to make more mistakes. We found out about him throwing trash in his neighbor's trash receptacle, about the DNA. They're probably waiting to see if he slips up more, to see what more evidence they can collect before he knows that police are onto him.
Now, Brian, the suspect will be back in court tomorrow. He hasn't offered a plea yet in this case. Do you expect that to happen tomorrow, and could the defense strike a plea deal?
I think we will hear a plea. Probably the biggest reason why we didn't hear a plea on the first appearance is because Ann Taylor, the public defender assigned to him, is not from the same county. We know that she's already been to the scene of the murders, and she's been doing her own investigation, as any defense attorney will. But while I think there's going to be a plea, I don't think it's going to be a plea of guilt. I don't think the prosecutor is going to give anything that he's willing to take at this point, just because there's so much evidence out there that hasn't been turned over to the defenses yet. I think this is going to be a not guilty plea, just out of a procedural stance, and then they would move forward to evidence collection, motions, and arguments like that.
Now, Brian, law enforcement has yet to find any connection between the suspect and the victims. Does that pose a challenge for the prosecution?
Yes and no. I mean, every prosecutor will tell you that they do not need to prove a motive to prove their case. But many jurors, many internet sleuths, many people who are following this crime want to know the why. The why isn't necessary to convicting anyone, whether you're talking about Brian Koberger or any criminal defendant, but it does help, because you don't want a jury sitting in this case, whether it goes to trial at the end of this year or maybe early next year, thinking, but why? What was the connection? Why would he just randomly do this? The unfortunate reality is there might just be a person that just does this for the sheer pleasure of harming someone else. So trying to find a why beyond that might be difficult, but it is definitely not necessary.
All right, Brian Buckmeyer, we appreciate the analysis as always. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Coming up, he challenged his middle school teacher to a dance-off, but wasn't expecting what happened next. See the viral video and meet the teacher and the student behind it when we come back. Welcome back. It is time for our series Brightly, where we try to bring a little good news to your day. And our guest today won't only put you in a good mood, they might even get you up out of your seat. Middle school teacher Yolanda Turner and her former student Orion Person, who was in 8th grade, or was then, had no idea that they would be in for international stardom when Orion challenged her to a dance-off. And, well, let's just say she accepted. And the crowd goes wild. Miss Turner, I should say, and Orion both join me live now for more on this. Thank you both for being on. Orion, let's start at the beginning. How did this dance battle start?
So basically, we were in exam week, and we were at lunch, and a lot of the students were like, oh, we want to do a dance-off, we want to do a dance-off. So Miss Turner was like, okay. And then there was 2 students that went before us, but then she was like, we have to show them what's up. So then I started going after her, and then that's what you see in the video.
So, Ms. Turner, where did you learn to dance like that? And did you immediately know that you were going to get involved in this dance battle? Did you know I'm about to give these kids a show?
I did. I had no idea. I was there just to provide some relief, some snacks, some, just help out with the activities that were going on. And they kind of drew me in. So I was like, okay, is this what y'all really want to do? I don't think they knew that I had, some hometown training. I've been dancing for a long time.
Yeah, suffice it to say, it looks like they were a bit surprised. Orion, what did you think as Miss Turner started dancing?
I knew that she can dance like that, but I didn't know that she can dance that good. So it completely caught me off guard. So my mind went blank.
Your reaction was also priceless, I have to say, Orion. I think that's part of what makes this moment so special. And you have some amazing moves yourself, I might say. But Ms. Turner, this video has gotten millions of views. Celebrities like Ciara and Khloe Kardashian have even reposted it. What was your reaction to that, and how does it feel knowing that this moment put a smile on so many faces?
Listen, I'm still stoked about the recognition and the people reposting. I'm glad that we're able to bring joy. I'm glad that we can show the fun side of education and that our students are engaged and they're ready to be active. And we just need to take the extra step to get them to where they're going. So I've gotten so many emails. I've gotten, phone calls. I got a phone call from Missouri here at my school. Somebody just wanted to say thank you. I got now I'm getting contacted by people in Congress. So it's crazy right now. Well, like Beyonce said.
Our thanks to both of you for sharing your story and your moves with us. Can you leave us with a little dance move as we say goodbye?
What you want to do, Orion? What you want to do? Go ahead. Go ahead. Show them a little something. That's the TikTok. Those are the TikTok hips. They love the TikTok hips.
I love it, guys. Thank you so much. And our thanks to our friends at Good Morning America Digital for bringing us this story. You can find more feel-good stories at goodmorningamerica.com. And that does it for us for now. I'm Diane Macedo. Stay with us as ABC News Live continues with more news, context, and analysis right after this.
You took my deepest dreams and wrapped them all. Your tiny way.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.